Because many people have already made up their minds about what Nigeria is supposed to be. They have Welcome to the African Excellence Hub. Because many people have already made up their minds about what Nigeria is supposed to be. They have concluded Nigeria cannot possibly be all that. So everything that confirms that belief gets amplified. But Nigeria is much more complicated than that. Nigeria can have terrible roads in one place and world-class infrastructure in another. Nigeria can have serious problems with electricity, which is even a political business deal, while simultaneously producing some of Africa's biggest technology companies. Nigeria can struggle with governance while producing globally recognized entrepreneurs, artists, filmmakers, engineers, doctors, scientists, and professionals. Nigeria can have poverty while also having one of Africa's largest concentrations of wealth and business activity. Both realities can exist at the same time. That is Nigeria. And perhaps this is something Africa needs to understand. You don't have to love Nigeria. You don't have to agree with Nigerians. You don't have to pretend Nigeria has no problems. But if you're constantly using Nigeria to measure your own country's music, movies, entertainment, infrastructure, roads, business opportunities, and cultural influence, banking systems, then you have already acknowledged something very important.
Mobile money failed in Nigeria not because it was a terrible product, but the market did not actually need it. In East Africa, mobile money thrived because our banking system was not so developed. There was a high friction for people who are employed in the capital city to be able to send money back home. The entire pitch for mobile money was ability for you to send money to your grandmother or to your mother back home. Currently in Uganda, it takes more than a business day to transfer money between banks. Nigeria, this was not a problem that they actually faced. The Nigerians had already built the NIBSS system, which is the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, which allowed for people to be able to transfer money between banks. And that means that you could buy goods and commodities and transfer money to the seller between banks, and it settles instantly.
Nigeria matters. And perhaps the uncomfortable truth is that Nigeria has become one of the major reference points through which Africa sees itself. Nigeria is not Africa, and Africa is certainly not Nigeria. Every African country has its own identity, achievements, and problems. But when the continent wants to measure its cultural and creative power, Nigeria keeps appearing in the conversation. That tells us something. And perhaps instead of constantly asking, what's wrong with Nigeria? We should sometimes ask, what has Nigeria done that made the rest of Africa use it as a measuring stick in the first place? Because you cannot spend every day measuring yourself against something you claim has no value. Even when you try to accept it by referring to Nigeria as giant and corruption or anything bad, we also feel your pain. At some point, you have to acknowledge the influence. Nigeria has problems. Nigeria has weaknesses. Nigeria has a long way to go. But Nigeria is also developing, creating, building, exporting culture, and influencing all mankind on this planet in ways that cannot simply be dismissed. And the fact that Nigerians themselves criticize their country or travel outside the country to live in should never be mistaken for evidence that Nigeria has nothing to offer. Sometimes we criticize Nigeria precisely because we know what Nigeria is capable of becoming. And maybe that's the part of the Nigerian story that people outside the country don't always understand. Thank you for watching.